Hello and welcome to the Transformation Project, a podcast and community for women who are looking to transform into the best version of themselves no matter where they are at. A place where you can listen, learn, and laugh along with us as we dive deep into different topics to help you live a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled life. Remember, we are all learning here together, and therefore the content and opinions of the hosts and our guests should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Transformation Project. We are excited. I know Jess is super excited for today's guest. Jess is in the trenches right now, and today we have on an incredible lady, Stephanie Pinto, who is an emotional intelligence coach. She specializes in helping parents create an emotionally intelligent family culture at home. I feel like we all need a bit of that. She's a certified emotional intelligence specialist, is a trained pediatric anxiety therapist, and practiced as a speech pathologist for 10 years. She is also the Child Behaviour Specialist for Australia's Nurture Parenting magazine and has been featured on international parenting summits, including Health, Wealth, Wisdom Parenting Conference, FamSummit, and Calming the ADHD Chaos Conference. She specifically supports parents in learning how to manage their emotions, frustrations, and stress so that they are happier, calmer, and connect more deeply with their kids, and helps those parents to raise emotionally intelligent kids who are self-aware and manage their emotions and behavior. I am so stoked to get into this today. Welcome onto the podcast, Stephanie.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
We're excited. So just to get us started, can you please explain what is emotional intelligence and why is it so important for kids and parents and families?
Oh my gosh, yes. You know what? I still find that emotional intelligence is a bit of a new term for a lot of people, particularly parents. And sometimes even a bit of a buzzword. And the way I found out about emotional intelligence was in the workplace for adults, in corporate and in teams, and it's very big for people who are, for adults in organizations and stuff like that. And so I, with my pediatric therapist background, thought, why aren't we doing this for kids? That ability to be aware of their emotions, manage their emotions, be resilient and confident and all those kind of things. So that's sort of, I guess that's my take on it. I don't just see emotional intelligence as managing your emotions and being really polite and kind and things like that. The way I view emotional intelligence is that we are honoring and valuing our emotions and teaching our kids to do the same. And so we're seeing emotions as valuable insights into our experience and our body and our functioning and things like that. So emotions are actually telling us pretty important messages and signals about how we're feeling and what things mean to us. So even anger, for example, is actually really helpful because it's telling us, hey, this thing is not okay, or this person has stepped over a boundary or something like that. You need to do something. So emotional intelligence is really just recognizing and understanding and managing your emotions so that you can better build deeper relationships with, we're talking about kids and parents, so in the family context, but just build deeper relationships with people around you and not get so pulled down into the trenches when big emotions happen or clashes or stressful, challenging behaviors and stuff like that. So really is kind of a bit of that X factor, I think, that brings a lot of calm back to the home when parents start to bring emotional intelligence into their family.
Yeah, I love that you do that because so I come originally back in South Africa from a call center corporate background, working in a really big, one of probably the biggest private health insurance company call centers that are there, managing those. And emotional intelligence was like a massive buzzword like 20 years ago, right? For corporate, like we had to do surveys and work out like where we fell on the emotional intelligence, like it was all the, every person that they brought in to come and re-look at what we did in the workplace was like, had another, emotional intelligence form we had to fill out. But just not applying it to families, you're right, it seems like a massive gap. And it's probably where there are more emotions in our children than anybody else.
Yeah, that's where we begin. Like, as children, we are fully emotional beings. Like I always say, kids have very little to no emotional self-regulation skills, because it's like riding a bike or learning how to speak. It's a cognitive skill that we need to develop and hone, and it emerges over many, many years, right? So we can't expect our children to manage their emotions or to recognize and label and express their emotions, with accuracy and with, really smooth, mature way, because they just don't have the wiring for it yet. So it's up to us adults to say, whoa, I see you're feeling some pretty big feelings, or you look really mad. I get that. And that is so tough. Oh, that's so hard. It's really hard to wait. Or isn't it stressful when he takes those things and he's not asking, So like acknowledging and, like I said, labeling emotions for our kids can be so, like, they sound like really simple strategies, but a lot of the time, we don't do that. We're too busy, or we don't think of it. We're not intentional. And then there's the whole can of worms of, a lot of us weren't taught this stuff as kids because 20, 30, 40 years ago, our parents didn't have this awareness or the knowledge or all the research that has now come out about emotional intelligence. So you said about 20 years ago, and yeah, it was around about the 90s, I think it was 1995, when Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence, hit the shelves and was published, and just opened this massive area of, I guess, a way of being that a lot of us really just had no idea about before. So, whew.
Love it. So to mentally prepare myself, going back to what you just said, when I know every kid is different. So if you're kind of doing these things in the home and talking about emotions, when does that wiring kind of kick in? Like, do I have like 1 year left, or like a lot of years left with my 3-year-old? Because we are trying to be so aware of this. And it's exactly what you said. It's big emotions. And I'll be like, okay, Kinsley, I can see that you're really upset. I'm not upset. And I'm like, okay. Cause she doesn't know, like, she knows some of the words, like, cause all of a sudden she'll just flip and be like, I'm happy, mommy, because she wants TV or she wants something else. And she'll know that, like, that's what I'm waiting for. So like, we had a freak out on the weekend. Poor dad, poor Father's Day. It was not a great Father's Day for him, but we had Father's Day and we had a freak out. And I said to Kinsley, we're going home now. Let's sit down and talk about it. So I let her calm down, and we went into the couch, and I was like, can you tell me what's wrong? I want to watch TV. I'm like, that has nothing to do with the freak out we just had 45 minutes ago. Can you tell mommy why you were upset? I'm not upset. I'm happy. And I was like, but before, like, when does that, like, I know every kid's different, but give or take, is there like a certain age that most kids kind of start getting a bit more emotionally intelligent?
I want to say that can be a lot to do with how we as parents are responding or reacting to our kids' big emotions. Like, this is where the rubber hits the road. When our child has an emotional outburst, a meltdown or a tantrum or something like that, how do we, like I said, respond, or do we react and try to, a lot of parents I work with, they are habitually trying to shut down or squash or suppress or those emotions because they're loud, or they seem to be rude, or we see emotions from kids a lot of the time incorrectly as bad, naughty, manipulative, even like a sign of weakness, particularly in boys, when really emotions are actually natural and normal and healthy and valuable. Like, they're messages coming up from within that says to the child, I'm not ready, I'm not okay, I need more time, I don't know how to do it, I need your help. So like, when we start to shift our lens on what emotions mean, full stop. Like, because again, a lot of us were not necessarily taught, but we learned not to show certain emotions. You know, anger, frustration, anxiety, sadness, fear are bad, and happiness, joy, excitement, and things are good. Like, we had these kind of value judgments assigned to different emotions because we experienced our parents happy and connected to us and showing us love and attention when we were these emotions. But when we showed those ones, then we were put away, put in our room, we were ignored, shut down, we were, you know, told to go to timeout or whatever. So we learned pretty quickly what those emotions mean. So if we can really I'm just finishing writing my first book about emotional intelligence, and the first chapter is the lessons we have to unlearn. Yeah. Because we've got to unlearn that emotions are, you know, particularly from our little ones, like you said, Jess, you know, we've got to unlearn that they are bad or weird or silly or childish and see them as natural. And then that brings a whole different energy from us to the interaction. And we start to become almost like a little teammate to our child. And we say, yeah, that was tough. Or, you know, what happened there? Or what can we do next time when it's time to go and you're not ready? Or when she takes those things and you don't want her to, or blah, 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 you know? Yeah. So it's about, I know I didn't really answer your question about the like a specific age.
No, but I know there's not a
3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10. And even like I always say to parents, if I'm doing a webinar or a workshop, I say, when do you think our brain is fully developed? And I'll get lots of different answers.
It's like in your 20s, isn't it?
It's mid to late 20s.
Wow.
Mind-blowing for us to recognize that, oh, my child is 3 or 8 or 14, and so they don't have the fully developed brain. They don't have the the wiring to be able to use these skills. Like, they're not there yet. And so why am I getting triggered over these things that, you know, my child still can't yet do? Managing emotions and being thoughtful and kind and empathetic and perspective take and all those things. So one thing I like to always say to parents is we can't hold our child responsible for the skills they don't yet have. Mm-hmm. And the cognitive skills, right? The empathy, the emotional regulation, frustration tolerance, flexible, adaptable thinking, like all these things that we use like on the fly every day, and our day is pretty simple. And our kids don't have these yet. So no wonder they're melting down every hour or minute, because the world is a confusing, crazy place to them.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we are definitely in that. And I feel like, so we've been spending a lot of time with this. So it's something we're trying to do. And exactly what you said before, it's the responding, not the reacting. And it's even like, as the week goes on, I respond less and I react a bit more. Or like a day where, you know, I've had to go pick them up and someone's sick or whatever. Like and it really is like unlearning those things. And Ben and I were having this, my husband and I were having this conversation over the weekend, and he was just like, she's so emotional. Like, we were kind of having a joke, and he's like, maybe I didn't want a girl first. Like, we have one of each, but and we always said we wanted a girl first. And it was like, he was like, maybe I take it back. Like, maybe this would have been easier with a boy, but it just, they seem so emotional. And you're like, just stop, just please stop. But obviously you say that and it just makes it worse. Let me tell you, because I've tried.
You know what, the reason, or part of the reason why towards the end of the day or the end of the week, we all lose our patience, etc., is because we have not learned to recognize and pay attention to our own emotions and our emotional, like our physiological state and our mood, because we are conditioned to go, go, go and keep busy. And you've got so many things to do, particularly mums. I can only speak, you know, as a mum, but we are not taught to take space for ourselves and check in. And so I always encourage parents that I work with or that I speak to intentionally take a moment, like literally set an alarm on your phone for 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 4 p.m. kind of thing, and check in. Like it requires you to step away or to go in the bathroom or your bedroom and just take a moment and think, where am I at? Like, how am I feeling? And very often when we do that, it could be 10 a.m. and we're like, oh my God, my heart is racing. Like I feel that stress of that thing that's coming up this afternoon, or the message from my mother-in-law, or, you know, something that went wrong. We don't recognize that we're sort of sitting at this heightened level. Yeah. And our emotions, our body is telling us, like giving us these signals, sore neck, like backache, or the dreaded, I did a presentation at a school on emotional intelligence last week in the evening, and the whole day I really didn't get much done because I could just feel myself like a little bit jittery under the surface. I was nervous about it. And so before, though, I would not have recognized that. I would have shoved down those signals. I would have just been busy. And then I probably, well, like as a child, I was very unemotionally intelligent and had anxiety, which is why I'm an anxiety therapist now. And I didn't recognize my emotions building. And so my fight or flight / freeze response when I got really nervous or stressed was to faint. And so I probably would have fainted trying to do that presentation. Whereas now I was able to kind of give myself some grace and slow down and recognize why I was feeling that way, and remind myself that I usually remember everything and all my words and my presentation and I smash it and things like that. But that's sort of, I think, really powerful for parents to start getting into a practice of.
Yeah. I think that's what we, as adults and in general, we're kind of expected to be okay most of the time. So like that kind of, you know, any kind of like constant grumpiness or chucking a tantrum or, you know, whatever, just is not acceptable. And so I think because we don't find it acceptable for ourselves, we expect it not to be acceptable for our children who are not capable of shoving it down the same way as we are, right? Like I know for myself, like my general daily mood is like going okay. Like, and that's my, like, where are we? Okay, we're going okay. But probably if I had to check in with myself a few times during the day, I'd be like, okay, wait, I probably need to take some breaths or, you know, just stop here for a minute. But I feel like I should be, and I want to do air quotes around should be okay all of the time, which is impossible, right? It could be okay all of the time. Like every now and again, surely you just want to stomp your feet a bit and whatever, but we don't. And I think we expect the same from our kids, and they're probably just completely not capable.
Yeah. And I think we've got to allow our kids to have those moments where they listen to their emotions and they hear the message that it's telling them. You know, I'm like I said before, this is too much. I'm not ready, or this doesn't feel good. I need a break. Like I said, you know, a lot of us adults don't take breaks. And I remember my son doing home learning last year in lockdown, and I was conscious of thinking, oh my God, like I've got to encourage him and give him permission to get to that level where he's like, I need a break, or me catch it before then, because we don't want to push our kids and think, no, come on, you finish this activity, then you can have a break. Actually, I'm listening to my body and I need a break now. I'm not hungry for this now. I don't like this anymore. It's itchy. I don't want to wear this. It's itchy now. Like, can't we just allow our kids to feel their emotions, validate their emotions and experience, and let them make those decisions? Otherwise, they're going to constantly look outside of themselves to what does this person think I should do? And what does my parent or my teacher say I should say or do? Like that can be at its worst very dangerous if we're not letting our kids hear those messages of it's a no, or I don't think I should do it or be here or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So if a child can't express how they're feeling and whatever, they have a tantrum or they're angry or whatever, how do we as parents or teachers, how do we help them through that?
In the midst of it, when the emotions are high, is not the time to have that discussion, or even to label the emotions. Sometimes we don't want to say, like you said before, we don't want to say, oh, you look really mad, because they'll be like, I am not mad. And you're like, I'm sorry. So holding space is such a beautiful term for allowing and witnessing and being present, but not rushing or, trying to calm them actively. Sometimes kids don't want you near them. Sometimes they don't want to be hugged or touched yet. They just need to let that emotion flow and be released. Like I always say, emotions are energy in motion, because they need to just be allowed to flow through. We can't shove them down. If we're feeling something, it's because there's a message in that, if that makes sense. And so if we can become comfortable in the uncomfortable emotions, maybe that we learned were not okay, or were to be dealt with behind closed doors, then when things calm down, then we can talk to our child. Sometimes it's even later that night, like a tuck-in is a really good time when I chat with my kids, and they'll both be more open, more receptive, more calm. And we can talk about, when Arthur was really bugging you at lunchtime and you got so mad, and I know his brothers can be so frustrating, and he was taking those things of yours, but then you hit him, and I know you did not want to do that. I know you never want to hurt him, but when he's doing that, or if he does that again, we need to make a plan. Like, what else can you do to let him know, or to let me know that that's not okay? We talk as well about our volcano bubbling up. It's a nice metaphor for most kids, and both of my kids will now say, my volcano is at 50%. Trying to or 99%. And I'm like, whoa, I need to move in quickly. But having those conversations, building their emotional vocabulary, and there's lots of resources and things that people can use for that. I often say, strike when the iron is cold. And that means, and another time when things are calmer and you have that good connection, then you can open up the conversation and talk about that stuff without possibly re-triggering any of those emotions.
Yeah. Jess, just as like a mum who's been through the trenches, actually, as Stephanie said, bedtime is an awesome one, because the kids don't necessarily want to go to sleep right then. So they will literally have that conversation just to delay bedtime. All the heavy questions about life, like where do we go when we die, and all those conversations all happen.
Got it.
At bedtime, because they were trying to delay, but it's the perfect time to kind of get into that, because they're chill, they're relaxed, plus trying to delay bedtime. So you kind of use that for your.
I don't know if Kinsley's too young, but I have brought it up at bedtime before, and she it's like she doesn't remember. Kinsley, that temper tantrum we had at the park today before dinner. Mm-hmm. She's just like, look at my doll. And I'm like, we're gonna have a chat, Kinsley, about how you were feeling today. And read me a book. And I'm like, okay. I don't know if she's just too young, or
she's got your number,
kid. Just doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know.
It's a bit of that. It's a bit of the fact that kids are beautifully in the present moment in their life, right? So they're in this different type of brainwave called the theta brainwave, which is the same type of brainwave that we are put under when we're under hypnosis, where we're unquestioningly absorbing and accepting any suggestions that are given to us. So that's why we call kids sponges, because they're really downloading their experiences, their reality, they're creating their beliefs and paradigms and stuff like that. But it means that they are unable to really do a lot of reflecting, like hindsight back into what happened, and that last time I did this, I got in trouble, so I better not do it. And also for forward thinking or foresight. So thinking about, if I do this, then that'll happen and mum will get angry. But if I do that and then I ask, then she might say yes. So kids really struggle to have that abstract thinking, which is why they're so, like I said, beautifully, but frustratingly in the present moment. We could take a leaf out of their book, really.
Yeah, I probably should.
Yeah. It was interesting when you were talking earlier about the empathetic sort of side to this, because I know when our youngest was little, so, prep, kind of heading into school, kindy, she had zero empathy for anybody else. And so it was actually to the point where she knew what she wanted to do, and if another child didn't physically say, no, I'm not doing that, then her presumption was, we're just going to do this. And so she had a couple, she would have like one close friend, and she would literally just lead this kid around by the hand, like, we're going here, and with no thought to whether they wanted to do that or not. And I can remember a conversation I had. One of her friends at the time was one of my friend's children. And every day at break time, they played this fairy story game where somebody was a princess and somebody was a unicorn and somebody was a wicked witch. And anyway, so because my friend's child was a little bit of a quieter child and mine was not, my daughter was always the unicorn.
Being able to like play with you, wanting to play with you all the time, and every time maybe hoping that she is the unicorn, because it is so fun, isn't it? I know how fun it is. But you know, noticing that maybe every time she's kind of losing that a little bit, like she's not having the opportunity, and that's probably going to make her feel pretty sad. You know, and I wonder, if you gave her that chance one time, what would you feel if a child said to you, yeah, you can have the crown, you know, and you really wanted it? So having these discussions, these conversations, maybe at bedtime or maybe in the car, or in the bath, they're really good moments as well to lend our child what we see and our perspective, because they don't really have that. They're just in the present moment. They're seeing through their own eyes, very egocentric. Again, that's very natural, but we can kind of help them go, if you keep doing that, I think this is going to happen. And then, you know, what the impacts on you are of that. You know, kids are not going to want to play, or they might go and find someone else who will let them be the unicorn. So it takes time, but man, like in the long run, we are saving ourselves so many moments of like stress and upset and meltdown, because eventually our child will learn the hard way, you know. So we can, I think it's our responsibility to kind of help in those moments, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does. And I like what you said. I guess going back to the parent, like checking in with yourself, I think that's really, really practical, because I'm even just going back through my day today, and it was a very average day, but I know there were moments where if I had stopped, I would have been like, relax, Jessica, you're like going crazy, like thinking about all these things you have to do and juggling and attempting to multitask. So I think that's fabulous. And I like, it's so funny, like in a vet and our business, it's very much about telling stories. And that's literally what you're telling us to do. It's telling a story to your child, like almost like a playing out story. Like this is what could happen if we like, and it's just because obviously they see in pictures just like we do. So like yeah, I really, really like that. Are there any
up telling stories about when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
So when I was blah, and it's most of the time it doesn't paint me in a very good light. So they can be like, oh, okay. Like, I don't want my kids to think I expect them to be perfect, because I know I'm not. But there's been a lot of, right. So a lot of what we do is personal development, Stephanie. So we do a lot of that. And so there's been a lot of realizations, I think, over the years, where we're constantly growing and we're constantly changing. And I try and then apply that to my family. And so there have been a number of occasions through the years with both my children where something will happen, or I can see something's going to happen. You know, like a warning. I'm thinking I can see the signs that we're going to head down a path that's not great. And so very often, Jess, in those occasions, I will tell a story about when I did something impulsive or silly, like break into the headmaster's office one day after school because everybody said that he had brandy in his cupboard. And so me and my friend, who is still my friend and who probably will listen to this, we broke into his office one day after break and went to look in his cupboard to see if there was brandy in the cupboard. And as it turns out, he'd gone home, but his secretary had not. And we got busted for that. Not a great situation. Not a lot of thinking was applied to that one. But definitely that helped with a few things with my 21-year-old, you know, where she would do some stuff or be thinking about doing some stuff that was impulsive, or be really down on herself because she'd done something that was impulsive, you know. And then she's like, oh, Mom, I've disappointed you. And I'm like, I think you're going to be all right, because I.
Oh my God, I love those stories.
How much sharing would you say is too much sharing with kids? Like, you know, Mummy's really angry. Do you just kind of leave it at that? Or is it like Mummy's really angry because?
I think it's really helpful to let our kids know how we are feeling and how their actions or words or behavior impact us, because that's a really important lesson anyway for us to impart to our kids. Hey, when you do this or say this, that has impacts to other people. You know, you're hurting how my feelings or my heart and things like that. But we don't want our kids to feel like shamed and blamed, like, you know, I put a roof over your head and now you're doing this, or, you know, you make me so angry, get out of my sight. So, but we can do it in a really caring, I want to say like helpful, loving, empathetic way. You know, I'm really mad. Like, you know, I feel like you guys haven't been listening to me today. Now I'm getting frustrated. I need to go and take some time to make a cup of tea or cool down. You know, give me a few minutes. I don't want to blow up at you guys, but I'm getting really frustrated. So, you know, and that's modeling, this is how I feel and this is why I feel that way. And now coping strategy, I'm going to go and make a cup of tea, or I'm going to send that email that I've meant to, then I'm going to come back and we'll talk about it. Because when we're calm and rational is when we make good decisions. When we're emotionally charged, then we make knee-jerk reactions that really are not very helpful.
Usually make things worse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love it. What other practical strategies would you recommend to parents?
For keeping their cool, maybe in those challenging moments?
Keeping their cool and also trying to raise emotionally intelligent children.
Okay, so keeping our cool, knowing and managing our triggers. There's a lot under there, but that's just one. So knowing what your triggers are and taking some steps to intentionally manage those moments where this is something that my child does or says that makes me usually erupt. So that's one thing off the get-go. I always say to parents, be kind and gentle to yourself, because maybe for 30, 40 years, we've been like playing this same kind of habit, this same loop. My child does this or someone says this and then I react. So being compassionate with ourselves that we're not going to get it right all the time. And taking that space to, be gentle with yourself if you do say or do things that you regret and things. And with our kids, I think always, growing their emotional vocabulary. Like I said, there are tools, there are resources. I've got this emotion wheel, kids emotion wheel on my website, for example. So there's lots of things that we can do. You can stick it on your fridge, or so many books nowadays, even at my local Kmart and Big W and Target, that have they're all about emotions. I don't know.
We have the feelings book.
Yeah.
We've read that a lot.
So tons of things like that. I think that helps to spark a conversation, helps to grow vocabulary, and also to normalize big emotions, things that are uncomfortable or yucky and things like that. So lots of different ways that we can sort of start to make little changes ourselves as the parent that really flow and ripple effect out to our kids and the way they deal with their emotions.
Love it.
Stephanie, it's been so wonderful having you on with us today. If we have any parents who would like to reach out, who would like to connect, what's the best way for people to get hold of you? Or, as you mentioned earlier, you do talks and things at various things. So if somebody wants to get hold of you to come and do an event or a talk somewhere, what's the best place to reach you?
Yep. Probably the easiest one is my website, which is just stephaniepinto.com. So it's very quick and easy. And you can, find a lot of information, articles and blogs and things like that on my website. But the main place where I do put out a lot of content and tips and information and stuff is on my Facebook community, and that's called Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids.
Love it. I think we're going to be signing up for that.
I was like,
I'll Jess is like, I'm
going to do it right now. My phone is right beside me, but I was like, just wait a second, Jessica.
Let us finish and then you can hop over.
Where are you? Where are you located?
Sydney, Australia.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
You're ready to just take your child and just go.
How do I see
There's going to be a knock on the door.
Totally fine.
You cannot outsource raising your emotionally intelligent child.
Oh, okay. Damn it.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Well, we hope you enjoyed being on with us today. We hope you have learned something and this helps you in your family with your children. If you ever have a topic that you'd like us to cover, please reach out on our Facebook page or comment underneath one of our podcasts. We're more than happy to find a guest who's able to help you with whatever it is that you're struggling with. And as always, wherever you are, wherever in the world, we hope you're having an absolutely incredible day. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening in to this episode of The Transformation Project. The Transformation Project is not just a podcast, we're also a community. We're a collective of like-minded people all around the world seeking to live their best life and raise each other up. We're looking to support you, set goals, get healthier, connect with yourself and others at a deeper level, and better understand yourself and the world around you. We're always looking to link arms with like-minded people wanting to create more out of life. You can connect with us via our website, which is www.thetransformationproject.net.au. Email us at support@thetransformationproject.net.au, or simply listen in to one of our podcast episodes, which can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can even watch some of our episodes on our YouTube channel, simply called The Transformation Project. Please like and subscribe to make sure you hear all the incredible shows and guests we have lined up. If you have any feedback or any comment, we would love to hear those, as well as any ideas or guests that you think we should be interviewing in future. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Transformation Project.